Hello viewers, my name is Kevin. I go by she, her pronouns. I am gender fluid and I currently go by she, her pronouns. And within the headspace, I am physically masculine, but I am gender fluid, so I prefer female clothing right now, at least in headspace. But my main focus for today's video is actually going to be about temporary alters, mainly because we had an experience that I wanted to talk about. So about a week ago, we were reminded of a very old anime called Beyblade, specifically Beyblade the Metal Saga. But the most important thing is that this is an anime that we watched when we were children. So while watching this, the body was really empty, and it was trying desperately to grasp onto anything that was that would remotely give it any sort of identity. And watching Beyblade did help, but it was blurry to the point that we didn't have anyone like trigger the front, so the body just started having a blurry sensation of having a temporary alter, a fragmented alter, be in front. Now these are personal terms, so we do have a difference between fragmented alters and temporary alters. Fragmented alters are alters that have a singular job. For example, we have a previous video with Rising and Viscous, and the two of them have one singular job, and that is the only job that they do. Temporary alters form as a measure of maybe extreme stress, and they exist for a few hours, weeks, or months before, in our case, dissipating or disappearing, and we personally just don't feel their presence anymore. For example, we had an temporary alter. We didn't know it was temporary, but we did have an alter split right after the political votes in 2024, when we learned that Trump was going to be the president. We were extremely stressed. We were under both political stress, we were under school stress, and also living condition stress. It was a lot to take in all at once, and so we split an alter that was specifically there to hold on to any type of stress regarding political and policy. After about 3 months, while we were looking through Simply Plural and saw their profile again, it was just a sign of like, oh, we don't really recognize this alter as someone that we can call back. While we do have a lot of like physical drawings of their existence, just looking through Simply Plural at that moment, and even now, it's like, oh, they were just a memory and not an alter that we had exactly. Obviously that alter existed, but looking back, it's difficult to say that alter is ours despite all of the evidence being insurmountable. There's so much evidence and so many experiences that this alter went through to help us manage our stress with just political stuff. Now, we personally don't know if these temporary alters eventually get integrated or just dissipate or just disappear. We don't know, but after some time, they just cease to exist, and that's how our experience is. There are also alters that exist due to a quick hyperfixation. For example, we did a rewatch of Steven Universe, and we really like a bunch of the characters in that show, right? And what ended up happening is that we had a very temporary alter of Pearl exist for approximately 2 hours, and then she stopped existing. Peridot for about 2 hours before she stopped existing. Neither of those two alters stayed cohesive or like stable enough. They were all cohesive, but they aren't stable enough to continue existing as alters. The analogy that we envision in our head is like the scientific chemistry, biology like concept that if all molecules were somehow able to form a specific connection in mid-air, then a consciousness could exist for a fraction of a second before it dissipates. And so in that sense, each of these like 2-hour alters, temporary alters, the molecules or whatever formed and coalesced into these temporary alters before they just dissipated again. Right now, as I am fronting, I have one alter on my left shoulder and one alter on my right shoulder. And the one on my left shoulder, her name is Beryl. She was formed quite literally yesterday. And we don't know if she's going to be a permanent alter, a fragmented alter, or a temporary alter. We're not sure. We don't know. She was formed because the body was empty and has been empty for 2 consecutive days, and the body was just desperate for any alter to give it direction, to have the body just wanted someone to help them get out of bed and do stuff in general, because the body was just rotting in bed, not eating food, not going to the toilet, and not doing anything except being in bed and watching videos. It was desperate to have an alter come and help it, and that was how Beryl was formed. And as I said, we don't know if Beryl is a temporary alter or a permanent alter, but we will have to see if she continues being in front for a few days or if she returns in a future date, because we have had an alter. Her name is Cecilia. She formed, I'm not sure, in July of 2025, and then didn't appear for months. But then in, I think, October of 2025, so 3 months later, she just suddenly appeared again. And then she appeared a few days later after that. So that's how we knew that she wasn't a temporary alter. She is a permanent alter that just doesn't appear very often. And so we had to edit our simply plural logs to record her as an actual alter, and edit that previous July 2025 record as an alter and not a fragment. So what's currently happening is just a waiting game, really. We do realize that a lot of these like 2-hour temporary alters, they can exist, but we're very hesitant, I suppose, to share about the 2-hour alters, because that just feels like our brain is mirroring, and those are not actual alters. But then again, when the 2-hour peridot was here, she wrote a journal entry that was extremely, like, nihilistic. I don't know if that's the correct term, but she wrote about how the fact that she knew that she was a temporary alter and that she just wanted to exist and enjoy life, but she can't even exist past a few hours. So how can she enjoy life if she won't exist in a few hours? And sometimes those temporary alters can really affect the system, even though they only existed for a few hours. And it's strange to read back on those, because we will like read them and try to identify who wrote that, but it's no one. No one here wrote that. It was that peridot that existed for 2 hours. And it's how we experience these constant alters. We do keep track of these temporary alters. We write them down, but we don't register them as actual alters in Simply Plural. We set them as the unique special fronting status and write a description of who it was, but not an actual alter. Early on, when we were splitting really easily, we would record each new alter as if they were completely new. But we've had to edit that and remove a bunch of alters because they ended up being temporary for 2 hours, and yeah, we had to remove them because they were not coming back. The alters that existed for 3 months, though, we do keep a record of them and we have archived them because they have had a very significant impact on the system. So we just keep them as a mementos for what they've done. And yeah, I hope this was informational. Again, these are just terms that we use. We don't know if this is what Pluripedia actually uses. These are just how we differentiate them. And I hope that our experiences, by talking about our experiences, that other people who also experience this don't feel as alone, and that this might happen to you too, and it could be normal, and it's hard, it's difficult, but it is something that can be worked through. 2-hour temporary alters are still alters, and you should still treat them with respect, even if they are self-aware, like the peridot. You should still give them the same amount of care because they existed and they deserve that care and respect and support if they need it. Have a good day or night. I hope this was entertaining, at least.